Dr. Samuel Paul, the founder of the Public Affairs Center, needs little introduction to most of us. After a productive and variegated career, Dr. Paul made Bangalore his home in 1992 and turned his attention to civic issues and public service delivery. This culminated in the establishment of the Public Affairs Center. While we are gathered here to usher in Dr. Paul's memoirs, this is by no means the end point of Dr. Paul's stream of ideas for India and the world.
Dr. Paul is perhaps one of the great Indians of our time. His dedication, his silent, persuasive, determined dedication to bring about some change in the way in which affairs are conducted in this world, in our country in particular. There must be some change. He is a passionate believer in the process of change for the better. This book is an autobiography in a different sense.
Dr. Paul says that a striking feature as I look back is the freedom and space I was given in my early years to grow and socialize. There was no air of overprotectiveness on the part of my parents.
It's in my childhood that my concept of values, what is valuable, what is right, wrong, all of these were developed. And in my case, looking back, I can say the concern about problems of society, the wider problems of society, germinated at that stage.
One thing that he was very committed and a very studious person.
He's a very hard-working, humble, very systematic, maybe very intelligent. Intelligent in my complaint had been that he is intelligent in one direction.
I've known Dr. Paul from the days when I was in Ahmedabad in the late 70s. And I've always thought that he is one unassuming, low-key, but an extremely sound and upright person. And I've admired him for all the work he has done.
His work has spanned many organizations, countries, and even continents. As the second director of the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, he brought a deft organizational nous to the establishment of what has become now the premier training ground in Asia for the development of young managers for the world.
It is when I came back to Bangalore and I didn't have the pressure of a job, I was not looking for a livelihood or any such, I was fairly well set, that I had this opportunity and motivation to really create an organization to deal with this that I couldn't do when I was pursuing a career. So that came in the form of Public Affairs Center. And the main problem I addressed there is, what can we and what should we as citizens do in order to improve governance, which is the function of government.
It's very difficult to separate the dance from the dancer. So the creation is very often the reflection of the creator. And we all came at a point in time to PAC when it was just beginning to coalesce itself as an institution, as a permanent aspiration. So the initial ideology, the vision, the character that Dr. Paul wanted to infuse into a movement like this affected all of us in a big way.
Dr. Paul worked hard to create an institution, an institutional network out of what essentially was a simple basic idea, that of getting citizens to participate with their experience and their ideas in the process of government.
And a couple of things stand out. One, the creation of Public Affairs Center was at a time when similar institutions did not exist in India. So this was not a case of an institution taking advantage of an inflection point, but rather an institution creating an inflection point. And we were happy and kind of lucky enough to be at that particular juncture.
What drew me to Public Affairs Center was the kind of work that the vision that Dr. Paul had of how we are going to hold government accountable, and that's a subject that's been close to my heart for quite some time, even before I met him. So that's the reason why I took up the career and said, yes, I'll do this, even though it's not really teaching.
For the first time, we begin to see evidence-based advocacy, evidence-based research, which was used as a trigger for societal action. And I think full credit goes to Dr. Paul for putting that model into perspective, which 15, 16 years down the line doesn't look that novel or innovative. But when you think back to early 90s, I think this was certainly a path-breaking, epoch-setting initiative.
The primary principle that Dr. Samuel Paul has instilled in the organs of government and among citizens group is that of the democratization of knowledge. Knowledge is available at many sources. It needs to be harnessed, pooled, and made available to larger and larger groups of citizens, as well as those in governance.
In a democratic country like ours, the governments and the government departments, the government servants, though they should be called public servants, but they rather fond of calling ourselves government servants. For all of them, the focus has to be the people. Our processes, our policies, our methodology of implementation, all this has to be focused on public, and particularly as police is concerned, the victims. From that point of view, the Public Affairs Center, the name itself, Public Affairs Center, it brings into focus the issues which just now we mentioned.
To show the power of a simple idea use that potential that every ordinary citizen, him or her, has, and to make sure that this is not a voice in loneliness, but this is something which, when it comes under a cause, it has a potential to create a change. I think PAC was instrumental in demonstrating the simplicity through which things can change and things can be done. The second is the power of evidence. Not always believing that shouting leads to change, but counting also leads to change, and how the power of empiricism and the power of facts and research has the ability to bring diverse stakeholders together. The third, I would say, is putting a model of constructive engagement. Knowing that differences exist, knowing that on one side you have the state and other side you have society, the belief that there can be a bridge which can be built between them, which in the early 90s was a very, very radical step to take, because it was so easy to identify as someone who is against something or anti something. So this language of engagement was something quite novel in the early days, and I think that became a model for many organizations which followed later on. So I would say, in a very humble way, these were some of the ideas that PAC implemented or transplanted into the civil society space during the early days.
We try to combine generation of knowledge, that is what research is, creating new knowledge and information, with support to citizen action so that the knowledge gets translated into impact on the ground, and citizens are the medium. So if you look at the early activities of PAC, meetings in the city, discussing the budget, discussing specific public service issues, talking about corruption, all these were part of that model of using knowledge in order to motivate and stimulate people to act or do something about those things.
In a democracy, at least we can speak truth to power. I believe that we fail in our duty to society when we refuse to exercise this right.
Dr. Paul goes on to record, "It is not Adam Smith's technical knowledge that has impressed me most. Rather, it is his breadth of vision and depth of understanding of the economic problems of his time, reinforced by his moral sensibility and a balanced view of how problems and policies need to be tackled, keeping in view the interests of all sections of society that has influenced me."